Are you constantly hearing the terminology limiting beliefs being thrown around on the internet? Do you constantly hear your favorite mindset coach talk about limiting beliefs? Or do you continue to hear me talk about limiting beliefs and you're like, what the heck are limiting beliefs? Are you curious if you have them? And are you curious to know if you can let go of them? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to teach you and talk to you all about what limiting beliefs are. Because when I started my self-development journey, no one, how do I say this? I feel like no one really spoke about limiting beliefs in the beginning, right? Like I started my journey in the personal development space, and that really wasn't a big thing. And I feel like now it's becoming more louder and louder on the internet. And I'm so grateful for it because we all have limiting beliefs, and that's the truth. Every single person on this earth has them. Can you heal from limiting beliefs? There are specific beliefs that you can heal from. Yes, I truly believe that. And there are certain beliefs that have been developed from a young age that we can heal from. Yes, like I just said, and they can come back, they can leave, and they can kind of like do their own thing. It's almost like a friend that has no freaking boundaries with you. I actually love that analogy. A limiting belief is like a friend who keeps disrespecting your boundaries. Like, we don't want you limiting beliefs. Get away, get out of my energy. So let's talk about it. Let's dive right in. By the way, hello, I'm Jessica, the host of A Stronger You podcast. And this is going to be the last episode that, well, hopefully, this is just going to be the last episode that you only hear my voice. If you guys are keeping up with me on Instagram, I did just move to New York from Austin, Texas. And I've actually lived here before. This is where I grew up. And I decided to move back. And I'm so fucking happy. I haven't been here in 4 years. I moved to Miami. I have a really crazy story, which is really cool, but that's for another episode. But so with all that being said, my camera and my mic have been packed away, but I got all the equipment back and I am really just like figuring out my filming schedule, like, when I'm going to be doing it. I'm really stepping into this new energy, a new identity, and a new season. Like I'm in a full new season. And not many people talk about this either, but moving is stressful. It's like an unconscious stress. So I am taking it slow, but that's why you don't see my face. So let's get right into it. What is a limiting belief, you might ask? A limiting belief is a thought, a feeling, or an emotion that comes up that is not true, but you think it's true. And sometimes you may or may not be aware that you are having these things. For example, has someone ever said to you, oh, you could just move to Miami? And right away you answer, and your belief, right? Your belief is like, no, I can't quit my job. I'm telling you right there, that is a limiting belief. Because truthfully speaking, you can quit your job if you wanted to, right? Right. So why is it important to be aware and just learn more about this terminology? Because limiting beliefs can stop us from listening to our soul's calling, our soul's purpose, our intuition, and what we're really here to do on this earth. Because I truly believe that every single person on this earth is here and has a mission, and everyone's soul has a purpose, right? And it's up to us to listen to that calling. So I know we're talking about limiting beliefs, but I also just want to talk about this real quickly. If you have a thought that comes into your mind and it's like a repetitive thought, let's use the example moving to Miami. If that has come into your energy, your aura, your mind, your thoughts, your brain, whatever you call it, multiple times, there's a reason for that. There is a reason for that. And I want to invite you to get curious about that, because the mind will not present something to you that it's not ready for. And that's another thing I really want you to feel into. And so coming back to limiting beliefs, right? How do you know if you have them? Like I said, we all have them. And, as deep as I am on my self healing journey, I still have limiting beliefs. Shit. Like they come up, and there's specific ones that I am still continuing to work through. And it's like a practice. And that's not what I wanted to say. So, what I wanted to say was healing happens in layers. I want you to think of healing as an onion. There are so many layers to an onion, right? There are so many layers to an onion. That's what healing is. You don't just work with a therapist, work with a coach, or like do meditation and bam, you're healed, right? No, baby, it happens in layers. And I want you to remember that when you are, let's say, working through something specific, because you might, let's say, do like one round of EFT tapping and feel really freaking good in the moment, but you might need a couple more rounds to heal and to break through from a specific limiting beliefs. And so one of the things that I use religiously, literally every single freaking day, is EFT tapping. And I've talked about this on my podcast. So if you're new here, you will hear me talk about it a lot. And if you have been here for a while, you already know. EFT tapping stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And basically what it is it is derived from ancient Chinese medicine. It's derived from acupuncture. It's when you tap on specific areas of your body and it reduces your stress levels. It is scientifically proven to reduce your stress levels by 40%. And I went ahead and got certified in it because I believe in it so much and I loved it so much that I wanted to study it. And I'm so grateful that I did, because now I use it with my clients and myself, and it's magical. It's magical, but it works. And with what I mentioned earlier, it takes consistency. So for example, for me right now, I've been tapping on this one specific feeling of success and wealth. And guys, I am not even kidding you. I have the same exact scripts that I'm following that I created for myself. And I did it for 2 days. And I manifested $1,000. And whoa, like the $1,000 just came from an unknown, not an unknown. It came from a source I wasn't expecting it to, right? It was kind of just like, oh, like we're gonna kind of do this thing where you do this, yeah, and then this person like literally offered that money. I just was not expecting it. I'm like, okay. And when it comes to success and wealth and money, right? We all have a money story. And this is also something that I teach. We all have a money story. We all have a belief about money, whether it's easy to make, hard to make, money's the root of all evil. Like there's so many limiting beliefs, right? And stories that we make up in our head. I like to kind of interchange the two, like limiting beliefs, also known as stories that are being made up in our head, around money, right? And so I've been really loving this tapping that I've been doing around money. But again, that's a whole nother podcast. And coming back to limiting beliefs, a couple other things that you can do is journal, right? So if you are going through a time in your life, let's say you're in a huge transition right now, you just moved or you just quit a job, or, you just had a baby, or whatever it might be. And if you feel like there are thoughts that are stopping you, like, oh, I keep having these thoughts, but like, I know this is right for me, but these thoughts keep coming up. I want to invite you to journal on them. Journal. There are a few, there's so many different techniques that you can do, right? You could go on the internet, search it. But there are 3 main techniques that I teach. And I do want to make a separate podcast about this. 3 main techniques that I do: the scripting technique, which is a highly, highly effective manifestation technique. I do a brain dump. And then I also teach the 333 method, which is something that I kind of just like put together myself. I don't know if anyone calls it that, but that's just something I literally put together myself. And I actually do want to make a podcast all about those 3 techniques. I have an ebook about it. So I'm going to do that for you guys, because I think it's also really important to understand like all these different amazing techniques that you can use for yourself. So I'm going to do that for the next podcast. Yes, I am. But I just really wanted to make a podcast episode just explaining about what limiting beliefs are, because I use that terminology a lot when I am on, like when I'm speaking on my podcast or when I'm, like on Instagram. By the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead and follow me at jessica.tellian. And the podcast is at A Stronger You Podcast. And so I think it's very important for people who are doing the work, right? The personal development work, to understand what this terminology means so that you can literally apply what us people are saying. And so, I spoke on how limiting belief is like a belief, right? It could also be known as like a story, but it can also be an emotion. Like mastering your emotions are, again, a whole nother subject, but sometimes emotions, like, yes, you're totally allowed to feel them, but girl, like, put your crown on, tie your shoes, and like be that boss babe that you are, because sometimes an emotion might come up around something specific because of old programming, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, feel it. Like, you don't want to ignore your emotions. That's the thing. You want to feel them, because the only way out of an emotion, whether it's depression, anxiety, sadness, fear, is through it, like to feel it. But feel it and then put your boss babe hat on, right? Move forward, move through it. Feel that shit and embody it, transmute it, move it around, because an emotion is a feeling. And I've spoken about this before on a podcast. You can move it around, and that's what helps gets it out of your body, which also known as somatics, right? Like somatics meaning your body. And again, that's a whole nother episode. And I'm really trying to be conscious of like these big words that I use, because I've been highly trained and studied, and I went through so much training of all of these things. And I also get to remember like who's listening to this podcast, right? Like, do y'all really know what these things mean? So I just really feel called to explain it and break it down, because there's so much good information on the internet. There's so much good information that I speak into, and I just want to make sure y'all are understanding the words. And that's one of my missions on earth, is to support people in fully understanding what certain things are. Because for me, when I was a kid growing up, I had a really hard time understanding what my teachers were trying to teach me. Like, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was diagnosed with a learning disability. And again, that was another story that stuck with me for a long ass time. And now I do not let that shit come through, except sometimes, like I said, layers of an onion. So it's fun at the end of the day. I feel like personal growth and personal development is like a game. I'm like, oh, here's that limiting belief again. Oh, here's this, here's that. But if you could take away anything from this podcast, is that we are all human. You are a human. I am a human. Like Chris Brown's a human, right? Who's like a really popular woman? Ciara, she's a human. And we all go through similar struggles. And so if you're going through something right now, I want you to know that you are not alone, and to reach out for support, join a community, share what you're going through with your friends, especially if you're going through things, because that's when it's most important to receive support. And that's when you get to be vulnerable and grow from it. So, I didn't realize this was going to be a 15-minute podcast. I thought this was about to be like a quick little 8-minute podcast. But thank you guys so much for listening. If this resonated and if this helped you out in any way, I would love to know. Send me a message on Instagram at jessica.tellian, or on the podcast at A Stronger You Podcast. And if you have not already, I would love for you to rate this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps push out the channel more to more people all around the world to receive this juiciness and this magic. But thank you so much for continuously supporting me and listening to the podcast. I love you so much, and I will see you next week on Monday. Bye.